We pulling?
What's up? I'm Jim Fro, and this is the Ready Check Pull Boss Guide to the Soul Hunters on Normal and Heroic. Big thank you to our supporters on Patreon. We've completely overhauled our Patreon exclusive content this tier with early access, extended heroic walkthroughs, and a bunch more. The Soul Hunters are 3 Demon Hunters, 1 for each Demon Hunter spec. There's Adaros, Valerian, and Ilissa. It's a one-phase fight with 3 intermissions throughout. It's a constant 3-target cleave, and you bloodlust on pull. The main goal of the fight is to kill all 3 bosses around the same time while dealing with some of their Demon Hunter themed mechanics, especially the big Demon Hunter intermissions whenever they get to 100 energy. So let's just start with phase 1. I'm not gonna lie, there's a bunch of abilities that happen throughout the fight, most of which are just dodge your feet kind of stuff, so we'll go over the main abilities first and then some minor abilities later. You'll start by pulling the bosses right where they are. One tank picks up Valerian and the other picks up Ilissa, and the raid can just spread out around them. The third DH isn't really tanked and kinda just jumps around every so often. Right at the start of the fight, the boss will cast Fel Inferno to create the arena circle. This does a massive amount of damage while it's being cast, but it only happens at the start of the fight, and obviously don't run out of the arena or you're dead. The first mechanic is void circles on the ground that need to be soaked by 1 player standing in the circle each. They'll get hit with a heal absorb plus a dot that lasts until the intermission. Every so often, the boss will spawn some pools on the ground and the debuff players need to run over the pools to eat them up. Dispelling the debuff does damage to the raid and causes it to jump to another player. On normal, that's pretty much all it does, but on heroic, the dot stacks up, causing the player to take more damage the longer they have it. You can reset the stacks by dispelling it. It also causes it to jump to another player. And that's what you want to do, but you need to be careful because it does big raid-wide damage whenever it's dispelled. So you want to wait until the player gets a bunch of stacks before dispelling it so that you aren't chain dispelling, which would kill the raid. There's also a bunch of different charges that the bosses do, most of which are just simple dodges like these little green ones and these void circle ones. But there's also the hunt, which is a big green line that targets 1 player and needs several other players to step into the line to split the damage. The more players, the better. On heroic, standing in the line also puts a circle under their feet that does a small AoE explosion around each player, so you'll need to make sure that everyone in the line stays spread several yards apart so you don't accidentally blow up your friends. Now, the tanks have some funky positioning to do since they need to keep the bosses stacked, which gets a bit difficult because the Void DH Adaris is constantly charging different spots of the room, so they'll need to be dragging the tankable bosses around to keep the 3 stacked for cleave as much as possible. The tanks also need to keep their backs pointed away from the raid because I-beam is a frontal that does a ticking dot to anyone standing in it, pushes them back, and then at the end does Fell Blades on the tank, which is another huge hidden dot. Around the same time, the other tank will be taking Fracture, which is a big hit that spits out some souls that need to be quickly collected by any other players. You collect the souls by simply running into them. You'll get a dot on you, so it's probably best to have one of your thicker classes pick these up, but anyone can do it. While the souls are out, that tank takes 33% less healing per soul, and the healing is redirected to the Demon Hunter, so it's important to collect the souls real fast. This is where you'll want to taunt swap pretty much at the end of every Fracture and I-beam. On Heroic, you also need to make sure to have both souls collected before the boss casts Spirit Bomb or you're dead. Even without any souls up, Spirit Bomb does big damage and puts a huge heal absorb on the raid, so healers need to be ready for this. And the last thing in phase 1 before we get to the intermissions is to make sure that you kill them all around the same time or bad stuff happens. Now, let's go over the intermissions. Each intermission happens at 100 energy and they always happen in the same order. Intermission 1 is where Ilissa and Valerian leave the circle and the Void DH jumps to the middle of the room, starts pulling everyone towards him and spawns orbs that need to be soaked before they reach him. Soaking the orb just does a little bit of damage, and touching the middle pool on the ground will get you a one-way ticket to the Shadowlands. So you basically just need to soak up all of the orbs while not touching the middle puddle. On Heroic, soaking the orbs also puts a stacking dot on the player, so try to stay under 3 orbs collected if you're squishy. Now, during testing, range classes, especially dot classes, could still hit the other 2 Demon Hunters that are flying around, but we'll have to see if that ends up going live. Then, after some time, the other Demon Hunters come back to the fight and you start phase 1 again. Intermission 2 is where Ilissa and Adaris leave the circle and Valerian now starts spawning these images that charge through players. There's not much to say about this intermission other than have the raid spread out as much as you can, keep dodging the entire time, and pop personals and hellstones if you get low. Then it's back to phase 1. For intermission 3, Adaris and Valerian leave the circle and Ilissa now jumps to one end of the circle and starts spraying Fel Devastation in a giant cone. You'll need to quickly get behind her to avoid the damage. Then she picks another spot to jump to and does the same thing. Raid-wide movement speed and a lock gate will be massive here. She ends up jumping a few times and then goes back to phase 1. After the 3rd intermission, you have maybe a minute or so to kill the bosses before the 4th intermission happens, where they do all of their intermission abilities at the same time, and guess what that means? You're dead. The fight visually has a lot going on, but if you deal with the main mechanics correctly, it's actually a lot more manageable than you would think from all the visual noise. And that's pretty much it. Here's a quick recap for you to review or screenshot for later. You can find all of our recaps over at the Ready Check Pull Discord. Big thank you to our supporters on Patreon. We've got a ton of Patreon exclusive content coming this tier, like early access, extended heroic walkthroughs, and a bunch more. So check out the Discord and Patreon links below. Peace.